Okay, good afternoon, everybody. So today what we're going to discuss, I got a text from somebody a little while back that read as follows. Hi, Rebbe, my parents are going away next week and I was planning on staying home alone. But I remembered that there's a Gemara in Shabbos that says, Asur lishon bebayis yichidi. Do I have to worry about that? Meaning he was going to sleep alone in the house. Is there a problem with sleeping alone in the house? So it is a Gemara Mufreshes. The Gemara in Shabbos, Tav Kufnan Aleph and Beis tells us, Asur lishon bebayis yichidi, v'kol hayashin bebayis yichidi achzasa lilis. It tells us not only that you're not allowed to do it, but it tells us the consequences of doing so, that there's going to be some sort of shade or a demon of some sort that's going to attack the person for doing this. This is quoted in the Mishnah Brura, not in the Rambam, not in the Shulchan Aruch, but it's quoted in the Mishnah Brura in Siman Reish Lamed Tes, Sivkat and Tes, when the Mishnah Brura is discussing Kriya Shema Lamita, and he's talking about how to protect oneself and what a person's nighttime routine should be. It's a worthwhile little piece in the Mishnah Brura to read. The Mishnah Brura writes, I mean, all the Mishnah Bruras are worthwhile to read, but I'm saying this has a certain impact. He writes, Kasva Svarim Shabalayla Kodem Hashena, Nacholna Adam Sheyifashresh B'masav Sha'asa Kol Hayom. That prior to going to sleep, a person should be mefashresh b'masav. A person should think about how he behaved that day. V'im yimtza sha'asa avera, and if he finds that he did an avera, for many of us that's not an if, but if he finds that he did an avera, yisvada aleha, he should say vidui v'yikabel alatzmo shelo la'asos ha'od, and he should be makabel not to do it ever again. Ubeprat ba'avonos ha'matzuyim, and especially the most commonly violated averos. Meaning the Mishnah Brura is telling us here are some suggestions of things to think about if you cannot think of any averos that you may have violated. Chanifus, shkarim, leitzanos, lashon hara, Bittul Torah. So he said those are the things that you really want to work on and think about. But then he writes, Gam roi limcha l'kol mi shechat kenegdo v'tziaro. You should also be mochel anybody that caused you any distress. U'b'schus zeh ha'adam arich yamim, and that will be a schus v'arich yamim Megillah Daf Chavches. Then, Amru Chazal, Hayashin b'bayis yichidi v'hainu b'layla ochastu lilis u'bayis hainu cheder. He says someone who sleeps in a house all alone, and he says specifically at night time, he's going to be attacked by lilis, whatever that is, and a bayis doesn't mean a house, it means a room, that you sleep alone in a room, which makes it even much worse now, because many people have their own room, even if they're not sleeping alone in a house. And then he goes on to say, and the people that are most in danger from mazikin are a chola, chaya, chasan, kala, avel, and talmid chacham balayla. Now the Zohar in Parshas Tazria says that even sleeping in a house alone during the day might be a problem. He says even during the daytime, if it's a very secluded, he doesn't say a room, he says, but a very secluded area out in a sada or something like that, even during the daytime is a problem. So right now it's not looking good for us, right? So what exactly are the heterim? To have your own room, to have your own, to sleep alone in a house, in an apartment. So several heterim. First of all, in Sharatzian on the bottom of Mishnah Brura over there, he says very clearly that the minhag ha'olam is not to be makbid about this. He says, Lefi zeh yashem b'chedra yichidi afshe bayis yesh anashim tzarich lizar shelo yeh no'ol rak pasuach lebayis. He says that if you're going to be makbid about this, since a bayis means a room, you have to make sure that the door to your room is not locked, because if the door to your room is locked, even if there are other people at home, you only connect with those other people if the door to your room is not locked, because if the door to your room is locked, then you're still violating this. But he writes, V'olam no'og in lahakal b'zeh. The olam is no'og to be makel. And then he warns, and he says, even if you're among the machmirim, and you're very careful about this, if in one of the other rooms in the house there is an isha levad, there's only a woman who's not your wife, and therefore by opening your bedroom door, you're going to now run into an isur yichud. So he says, don't open your bedroom door, meaning better to violate this of asur lishon yichidi rather than to violate an isur yichud. A very interesting assumption about the isur yichud, right? Meaning he seems to be assuming that if you lock the door from the inside, where you have the ability to unlock it also and walk out and be in the house with the woman, he seems to be assuming that will save you from the Yisur Yichud, which is an interesting assumption. It's a good maramakom when you learn Yichud to try to figure out what he means by that. But okay, but that's heter number one, is that if the that the olam is knowing to be makel for whatever reason. So that's kula number one. Kula number two is what he alludes to, the unlocked door. Many poskim quote this as well, that sleeping in your own room as long as the door isn't locked and other people are in the house would be good enough. Rav Breish has a Tshuva in Chalkas Yaakov or Chaim Simonun Zayin, where he says like that. The Eshel Avram Mibachach, Rabbi Avram David Mibachach, that suggests that even if there's just a mezuzah on your door, that should serve to protect you. Mezuzah has protective powers, so the Gemara was talking if you happen to be sleeping in a room that does not have a mezuzah. But if you have a mezuzah, that's good enough. Kaf HaChaim says, come on, the Gemara was talking about sleeping in a room without a, why would the Gemara be talking about sleeping in a room without a mezuzah? Who sleeps in a room without a mezuzah? So he does not think that a mezuzah is good enough. There are many poskim that hold that since the concern was only at nighttime, where one is going to be subject to lilis, if there's light, then it solves the problem. And this is based on the Gemara in Brachas Taf Mem Gimel, where the Gemara says that a shade will appear to a lone person and cause him harm, but it will not damage two people. And then the Gemara says, Va'avuka kishnayim bahadididei, that an avuka is like there's another person there. So as long as you have an avuka, as long as you have a light in the room, it's as if there's another person there. And that is the most popular of all the kulas. That is quoted by all the poskim, the Kaf HaChaim and the Tribuna Rav and the Chalkas Yaakov and Rav Itzal Stern and his brother Rav Meisher Stern and Rav Binyamin Zilber and Rav Vad Yosef. They all quote Rav Eliashiv and Ashrei Ish. They all quote this kula. However, in the Sefer Orchos Rabbeinu, he writes that the Chazon Ish was makpid even with the light on in the room, not to sleep alone in the room. Now, what if the light's not on in the room, but the light is flooding in from another room? So in Halicha Shlomo, he says that Shlomo Zalman would light a small night light in the room that he would sleep in when he was sleeping alone, even though there was light flooding in from a street lamp or something like that. He didn't rely on that. He felt that there should be some light on in the room. However, the Eshel Avram says that even if moonlight is coming in through the window, that's good enough. Any amount of light coming in from anywhere is going to be good enough. Also, the Kaf HaChaim writes that the Aryeh Levana, the moonlight coming into the room, is good enough, and the Chorah doesn't have to be moonlight. Debetzin Rav writes in Ber Moshe that if a closet light is on, a bathroom light, a hallway light, something that allows some light into the room is good enough as well. Now, the real heter though is this really a halacha? Meaning, it's not quoted in the Rambam, it's not quoted in the Shulchan Aruch. So yes, it says it in the Gemara, but the poskim don't quote it. So there are many halachas that are not quoted in Shulchan Aruch, and yet we still do observe. There's a long Magen Avram, and Mishabura quotes most of it, where he goes through, I think in Kufnun Vav, where he goes through all of the halachas, like the issue to speak Lashon Hara, or the requirement to have a mechitza in the shul, right? So those are things that we observe, and hopefully we try, and yet those are not quoted in Shulchan Aruch. So it's not necessarily positive proof just because something's not quoted in Shulchan Aruch that it's not a halacha. There's a wonderful little sefer that was printed about more than 100 years ago, I think, called Shichachas HaOmer, Omer with an aleph, and it's all the examples of things of halachas that are Gemara Mufreshas that the Rambam didn't quote and the Shulchan Aruch didn't quote and that the Rif didn't quote. So it was what they forgot to say, and he has a little shtickle on each one as to why it's not quoted. I should have checked there before I give this year. There is a discussion. What about sleeping in the sukkah? Meaning, if you're all alone, if you're concerned about this, what about sleeping in the sukkah? So the Tribuna Rav in Doviv Mesharim Chelik Aleph Siminayin Tes says it's pashut that's not a problem because the Shir Sukkah is Rosh Ruba V'Shulchano, only fits one person, and you got to sleep in a sukkah. So how could you sleep in a minimum size sukkah if you're not allowed to sleep alone? So he says it's got to be. I don't know, maybe you have a lamp in there, but whatever. He says it's got to be that you're allowed to sleep, that the mitzvah is going to protect you. In fact, in Ma'aser Rav in Os Reish Chaf Aleph, it says that they asked the Vilna Gaon about this, and it says, and the Vilna Gaon said, Shomer mitzvah leyeda davara, that don't worry about it because you're Shomer mitzvah, which implies that otherwise the Vilna Gaon was otherwise worried about sleeping alone, but Shomer mitzvah leyeda davara, that you don't have to worry about it. Like I mentioned before, in Orchos Rabbeinu it says that the Chazon Ish was very, very makpid about this, so much so that he didn't even rely on a light. He would always insist that someone else sleep in the same room, but that l'chora is a midas chasidus that is not the common minhag. So again, at the end of the day, Mishabura quotes it, but he says that the olam is not knowing this way, and it's always good to have one of the yaterim, some amount of light coming in from the street, from somewhere, from something, and that l'chora does the trick. Okay, everyone have a great day.